Hello, winners. You know, when you do a podcast, you're supposed to have a pet name for the listeners of the podcast. And since it's Weight Loss Winformation, I'm calling us winners. And you know what? Even if you're losing weight, even if you're stuck at a weight, to me, you're a winner because you're listening to the podcast and hopefully many others in order to learn something new about yourself. And I think anybody who is working on self-improvement and self-growth is a major winner. So I'm going to start every episode by saying, hello, my winner friends. And I am alone today. I am having a solo podcast, which I haven't done for a while. I really like doing them, but I also really enjoy the guests. Very curious to hear from you guys. I'd love to know what you think. What kinds of guests you'd like to have, what kinds of topics you'd like me to talk about. Well, today I'm practicing one of the strategies I like to use in life, and it's called work smarter, not harder. I'm speaking at the Obesity Help Conference in about a week and a half, and they gave me a topic, and it kind of cracks me up. Not the topic itself, but the description of my talk, because I didn't write the description, and to me it was like, okay, we have 7 topics here, and I'm going to try to fit them all into a 45-minute talk on this one topic. So the topic is, the title of the presentation is Triggers versus True Needs, Breaking the Cycle of Addiction. However, in the paragraph describing the talk, they talk about exploring the real needs behind your strongest urges by understanding your reward-seeking patterns. Well, there's a topic, reward-seeking patterns. You'll also learn why habits don't just disappear. There's another topic, habits, how you form them, how you keep them from poof, going up in a puff of smoke and being gone. Explore the real needs behind your strongest urges, exploring personal triggers. Oh, there's a topic, personal triggers. And the difference between cravings and true needs, emotional eating, and addiction. And the last line was, you'll learn suggestions for learning the tools you need to become prepared and equipped to lose weight, maintain your weight loss, and live a happier, healthier life. Okay, so there's 45 minutes and 7 different topics. So I created a PowerPoint that I really like. So I'm going to put it on the podcast today, not the PowerPoint, just the talk, and see how long it goes. This is my dress rehearsal. So if you're planning to be at the Obesity Help Conference, which is in Irvine, California, not this weekend, the weekend following this weekend. So if today's the 7th, so it's around like the 15th, 16th, 17th, something like that. Don't have a calendar in front of me, but I cannot wait because I want you to know something about the Obesity Help organization. It's been around a really long time. It was started by a man named Eric Klein, and Obesity Help used to have like 3 or 4 conferences a year. And when I started in this field and I was venturing out to do presentations at different conferences, Obesity Help they have, maybe they know, maybe they don't know, but 2 people in particular, Kim and Dave Jarina. Kim works for Obesity Help and has for a very, very long time. She and Dave became our good friends. Steve and Dave are like twin sons of different mothers, much like he and David Schroeder, who are our friends from Australia that we met in the bariatric community, and his wife, Andrea, is also a good friend of mine. But so we really hit it off, and they are just amazingly good people, and they almost, well, not single-handedly, there's a whole crew, of course, that puts together an event like that. But they have continued to organize this event for at least 20 years, and they do an amazing job. And so we love to go just to get together with Kim and Dave, but also to see all the people that we have met at these conferences over the years. And they were so kind and generous to me at the beginning, and I presented at most of their conferences for several years. There was a core group of us, and we presented at almost every one of their conferences, which were held around different parts of the country. And it really gave me an opportunity to practice doing talks in front of other people. I was never afraid of public speaking, but I didn't start out the way I present there now. And another good friend of mine who has been instrumental in helping my career is Laura Van Tile. And Laura Van Tile is associated with the Weight Loss Surgery Foundation of America. And Laura said to me one time after we'd gotten to know each other pretty well, she said, Connie, I was so excited to hear you speak at the Obesity Help Conference. And she said, you were just as boring as everybody else. Well, that cracked me up. But it was true because I was scared. I was nervous. I hadn't done anything like that since probably high school. And so, public speaking. So over the years, now when I go there, I'm like, please don't make me stand behind a podium. I can't do it. I have to move around. I have to be jumping around on that stage and chatting and just being who I am. And I love every minute of it. So looking forward to this year. And I hope I'm much less boring than I was 20 years ago when I started doing this. So one of the questions that they posed in their outline, their paragraph describing the talk that I'm doing is this. Why do we reach for food, alcohol, shopping, or other comforts even when we know they don't truly help? So why do we do this? Why do we reach for these things we know they don't really help? So the next slide I put, or do they? Or do they help? We reach for them because they do help us with what we're looking for in that moment. And what we're often looking for when we reach for these things that really, if we're excessive in our use of them, are really not good for us. But we reach for these things, talking emotional eating kind of here in the example of food, but it numbs our pain. We're looking for something to numb our pain. So does it work? Yeah, for that regard it does. To lose weight? No, it does not. But these things numb our pain, whether it's physical or emotional. We turn to these things for stress relief. We know from research that regain is very much related to life being stressful and using food as a coping skill. Not a healthy one if you're struggling with the disease of obesity. Just like having a drink in and of itself is not a horrible thing unless you're using it to numb yourself because you're an alcoholic or, relieving yourself from stress. These things, food, alcohol, shopping, these other things, provide relief and distraction from other things going on in our lives that maybe we don't want to deal with. Maybe we're having trouble in our marriage, or our parents are ill and we're doing caretaking, or maybe we're in a really intense school program, or we're having a difficult health situation. So these kinds of things can distract us and give us a little bit of temporary relief and pleasure. So we turn to these things because they provide pleasure and they are self-soothing. So do they work? Well, it depends. Are we talking about, do they work for weight loss? Absolutely not. Do they work if you're trying to numb yourself? For a short time. But we know in the long run, and especially if you're in a place where you're in the weight loss process or you're in the weight maintenance process, that is a habit that is going to lead you back to regain what you're trying to avoid. So why are we really, really reaching for these things rather than picking up on the habits that we have been told to use in the process of maintaining weight loss, or recovering from alcoholism, or trying not to spend so much money on Amazon because you're overdrawing your bank accounts? Why do we really do these things instead of using our healthier options? Or why do people go back to those old unhealthy habits, which we just described why? But the reason it's difficult for us to engage in and maintain and sustain those healthier habits, those healthier skills, those coping skills, is either we're not prepared, or we're not equipped, or both. Or a third option is, I don't really want to do it. So I'm going to describe those three things in relation to why do we go back to those unhealthy behaviors to find comfort. Let's start with being not prepared, with not being prepared. A lot of people who take a GLP-1 or have a surgical weight loss procedure, some have some pre-preparation through their medical team, others have very little. It used to be the case, and unfortunately probably still is the case, at a lot of bariatric treatment centers where they do surgical procedures, that if a person is a self-pay patient, they are not required to go through the steps that insurance requires in terms of preparation, which boils me to no end. I can't even tell you how angry I feel about that. And who do I hold responsible? The program, the bariatric program. If they're not requiring their patients to have the same preparation, which in my mind is minimal anyway, then they are saying, we don't really care about our patients. You know, throw shade at me if you want to. But if I'm doing something that is to the long-term health and benefit of someone I supposedly care about, because the program's always telling us how much they care about their patients. And let me tell you, I've worked with some programs that absolutely do care about their patients. They go above and beyond. They stand on their head. They jump backwards. They do what they can to help these people have long-term success. But if a person is told you don't have to do any of the preparation work because you're going to give us your cash in hand, come on through, we'll put you in the operating room at your initial consult because we want your cash, ticks me off. All patients need preparation, and we're not getting enough anyway. So to go to a program and think you're getting a special favor by not having to do the preparation is really going to hurt you in the long run. Just saying. But a lot of people are not prepared to deal with the day-to-day issues that can really easily lead to a return of those unhealthy habits. So maybe you think you're prepared to have the surgery, but how well prepared are you to live the lifestyle? It's like the difference between having a wedding and having a marriage. Also, having a surgery and having a lifelong habit change, lifelong healthy lifestyle. Very, very different. So now we're going to play a game, my friends. And the game is called Prepared or Not Prepared. And if you're driving, or if you're walking, or if you're in your living room or in your jammies, snuggled up in your bed, I want you to play with me and shout out loud with me, all right? So again, the game is Prepared or Not Prepared by my treatment team for either a surgical procedure or what goes on if I take a GLP-1. All right, were you prepared or not prepared? Part 1. Were you prepared to understand the side effects from the surgery and or medications? Yes, most places prepare you to understand that there are side effects. Well done, program. Were you prepared by your medical team to drink lots of water? Yes, hopefully you've been prepared for that. Were you prepared to eat protein? Eat a lot of protein. Power in protein. Yes, yes, you were. Shout with me, friends. Were you told? Were you prepared to eat a lot of veggies, a lot of fruits, a lot of healthy, real foods? Yes, 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 yes. Oh, great job, programs. Were you prepared to minimize or eliminate a lot of added sugar to the things you eat? Yes. Oh, great preparation. How about, were you prepared and encouraged to avoid unhealthy snacking, whether it's late night snacking or during the day? Stay away from those unhealthy, high processed food. Yes, yes, you were. Were you encouraged? Were you prepared? Were you told, take bariatric vitamins as directed by the nutritionist, the dietitian? Yes, give me a big old yes on that one. Were you encouraged? Were you prepared? Were you told you're going to have to shake your groove thing, meaning you got to exercise regularly after you have? Yes, yes, you were prepared for that. Beautiful. Are these the kinds of things you heard anytime you went through a diet program in the past? Yes! Okay, so basically you were prepared to eat healthy and exercise. Oh, you've heard that before. Now let's play prepared or not prepared part 2. And again, we're talking about your medical program where you had your procedure, where you got your GLP-1s. Have they prepared you in these ways? All right. Were you told how to deal with anxiety or depression? Should they occur after surgery or after you've started taking a GLP-1? Were you prepared for that? No. Were you taught stress management skills? Were you taught coping strategies because life is stressful and that's when people return to eating? Were you taught these things? No, Connie, we were not. Were you taught how to change unhealthy habit patterns? Did you understand the science of habit change and what you've got to do to break a habit and introduce a new one and make it stick? No, you did not. Were you taught to identify and successfully navigate personal triggers? What is a trigger? First of all, were you taught that? And then when you know what a trigger is, were you taught to navigate through those so you don't go back to eating the food? No, you were not. Were you taught about emotional eating? And were you given the tools for changing that unhealthy pattern that's going to lead you back to regain? No, you were not taught this in your program. Were you taught about food addiction? Were you given tools for change? Should you actually have an addiction? No, you were not. So, chances are you were not actually prepared to deal with some of these very, very critical. These are critical issues. These are common issues that interfere with weight loss and weight management. Tragic, but true. Because these are the things that I see people for after they've had surgery or after they come off of a GLP-1 because they were not ever prepared by the people who are giving them the medication or by the people who are getting them ready for the surgery. And even in aftercare support groups at most programs, these are not the things that they cover. In most aftercare programs, it's like, let's clap for how much weight we've lost, which is a great thing to do. Let's do that for sure. Let's give ourselves a hand right now because all of you have done an amazing job. But that's not helping you know what to do when the going gets tough. And the going gets tough on a daily basis because life is stressful. We run into triggers on our way to work. We run into triggers at work. We run into triggers at home. We run into triggers over the holidays. We run into triggers all the time. And without any skills to know what we do when we have this trigger that's drawing me back to a comfort that I'm familiar with, I might go back to that comfort pretty easily, or I might do the transfer addiction thing and find something else that will give me some relief in a hurry from these emotions that are really uncomfortable for me. So that covers the fact that why do we really reach for food, alcohol, shopping, other comforts? We're not prepared. Let's move on to not being equipped. Ill-equipped is one of my favorite words in the English language because it really helps me to understand the reasons why I did not have a healthy marriage at the beginning, the reasons why I turned to anorexia, the reasons why I turned to alcohol and prescription medication, because I was not equipped to deal with some of those things we've already talked about. And ill-prepared and ill-equipped, there's not a whole lot of difference in that, but let's talk about not just the weight loss surgery community or the GLP-1 community, the medical professionals. Let's talk about equipped in life. For example, some kids go off to college and they are very well equipped to manage their money. They've been taught, in my world, it's give, save, spend. So you give your percentage, you save your percentage, and then you have the money that you can spend. So I was not equipped with that information when I went off to college. And guess what? When it was time for me to graduate from college, I was told I could not graduate until I paid the hundreds of dollars. Hundreds. This was a long time ago. Hundreds of dollars would easily have been thousands today of parking tickets I had on campus. And not only did I have to pay the parking ticket, but I was told I needed to pay the fee associated with every single one of those tickets and could not graduate until I did so. I was clearly not equipped to manage my money. Did I pay that? Yes and no. So here's what I told them. I said, you know what? I will pay all of my parking money, but I can't pay these fees. So either lock me up and put me in jail or take the money that I can give you. And they did. So there you have that. I guess I was always a little assertive. All right, it's game time again, my friends. And this time the game is equipped or ill-equipped. And now I'm not talking about your treatment team. I'm talking about in life. Were you equipped or were you ill-equipped before you got into the surgical procedure or before you started taking a GLP-1? Just in life. Were you equipped with these things? So for example, let's say your childhood. Were you taught in your family about healthy eating, to have a balanced diet, to, use real foods, to prepare your meals? Were you taught that as a child? Well, my mom cooked, but she wasn't one who taught us 6 children to cook. And we had a healthy meal at dinner time. We sat down as a dinner and had a very healthy meal: meat, vegetable, starch. However, let me tell you what I ate the rest of the day. For breakfast, as one did in the 1960s and 70s, we had cold cereal, which of course was sugar-filled cereal before school. And my lunch at school, we took our lunch in our little brown bag. And in my little brown bag, yes, listen to this: white bread, 2 pieces of white bread with butter and grape jelly. Butter and grape jelly sandwich every day of my life in elementary school, along with a Ziploc full of potato chips and a Hostess Twinkie or Ho-Ho or cupcake. That was my lunch. So far in the day, I have had nothing but sugar and some milk. And then after school, it was Oreos or those cheesy Doritos. That's what our snacks were at home. So throughout the day, I really ate like trash food. And then at dinner, we would have a well-balanced meal. So was I taught? Not a whole heck of a lot. I didn't know what a nutrient was. I knew what a fruit and vegetable were, but I didn't know what protein meant. We talk now about macronutrients and micronutrients, and maybe it's just because I'm in this field. I don't know, but I never heard those words growing up. So how about you? Were you equipped to prepare real foods, to prioritize healthy eating? My guess is that didn't land for many of us. All right, what about, did you learn as a child or in high school or in college? Did you learn, maybe by example, to exercise on a regular basis? Now, what I will tell you about myself is, in my family, we were not taught about the importance of exercise. But what we did do was a lot of my dad, and this is one of the things I really value about my father, and one of the things that he taught me and gave me as a value, is we did a lot of family things. So many a night, we would all get on our bicycles and we would, well, here's the other part of that. We would ride our bikes, and most often we would ride to the ice cream shop, and we would have an ice cream cone. But we did ride our bikes, and it was a lengthy ride, especially for kids. But he would lead us. We would be riding in the street because, there weren't bike paths in my town. But he would take, we'd have this little train of my dad and at least 3 or 4 or 5 of the kids, and we would go on bike rides. He would pack us all up in the winters. And now, my dad had a lot of negative traits. But I'll tell you what, when I think about, there were 6 kids, and my mom was not into any of this stuff. So he would pack us all up midwinter. It's cold. There are, coats and hats and mittens and gloves and boots and ice skates. And he would take us to a little tributary off the Mississippi River and shovel off the snow, and we would ice skate as a family. So we would ice skate. So we did a lot of physical things. We were never taught you need to exercise this many minutes a day or this many days a week, but we were a fairly active family. How about you? Were you equipped when you got to the point of having a surgical procedure or taking a GLP-1 to exercise regularly? And even if you had been taught, were you doing it? Were you equipped to be doing these things? Here's one. What about body image issues? Dare I ask if any of us have struggled with body image issues? Because, oh yes, I know I have. And my question is, were you equipped to deal with your emotions related to body image? Or did the people in your life pass on their own body image issues to you? What I remember about my own childhood is that, my mom and her friends who, were old as dirt as far as we were concerned. They were probably 35, 40 years old. And they were always doing my mom had the box of, they were called aids. They were chewy caramel, diet supplement caramels sitting on the counter. And we would just eat the dang caramels. We weren't taking them because they were supposed to, I don't know if they had some sort of nicotine in them, or not nicotine. I mean, what's in coffee? That drug. Or if they had some sort of appetite suppressant in them. But we would eat those darn things. And then they all had that little butt jiggle machine where they'd put the wide band around their rears and they'd turn it on and it would shake their butts. So there were dieting and weight loss and body image things around us. I don't recall it being an issue in our home, like commenting on what you look like. But I think there had to be some subtlety around that. But what did you learn around body image and how a woman looks or feels? Because given the knowledge that I have through seeing patients for over 20 years, it absolutely makes my heart sink when I hear some of the comments that the female, mostly patients that I've worked with, tell me about what their parents said to them about their weight. I mean, horrifying things. Many of you have lived that experience. So were you equipped to handle negative body image issues? Not likely. Do those interfere with us as we're losing weight? Most definitely. All right. Were you equipped in life over the growing up years and as you got into your weight loss journey to set healthy boundaries with people? And why is that important in this realm? Because what's that got to do with weight loss or maintaining weight loss or not turning back into those old habits where we find comfort and soothing? Well, if we're unable to say, please don't bring that food into my house, then we're going to have a problem. If we're not willing to say to our partners and our children, you know what, I'm not asking you to go on the same journey I am, but I would really appreciate if you would be respectful enough to keep your favorite foods out of my sight. If you're unable to stand up for yourself and set healthy boundaries, you're going to be in trouble long-term in your weight journey if you're not equipped. What about being equipped to handle conflict? Oh, this is a fun one for me to talk about because you know what? People suck at it. And people are afraid of it and they shy away from conflict for a number of reasons. Maybe conflict was never done in your home. There was never any conflict, which tells me you learn to shut off your emotions at an early age, because there's healthy conflict in all relationships and it just has to be discussed. Or maybe you avoid conflict because conflict in your house was like it was in mine, which was constant screaming, name calling, very bad language, terrifying to young children. So have you learned how to handle conflict effectively and respectfully? Are you equipped in that skill? I know many of you are saying absolutely not. I am not equipped in that, and it scares the absolute bejesus out of me. How about this one? Did you ever learn great ways to engage in healthy self-care? Not like selfishness, but healthy self-care, like taking some time out of the day. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 15, just to breathe by yourself. What about learning, you know what, I just need to soak in the tub and just relax. I'm going to go get a massage. I'm going to take a walk. It doesn't cost any money. I just need to clear my head. Were you equipped to know when you needed a little self-care time? And did you have role models that taught you about self-care? Or were you told if you take time for yourself, you're a selfish person? Now, why do we need this as we go through the weight loss procedure and working to sustain that weight loss? Because if we're stressed out all the time, and we know that stress is one of the leading things that has us return to food as comfort or some other unhealthy substance, then we're going to be in trouble if we don't know how to set boundaries for ourselves to take time out for some healthy self-care. Were you equipped? Are you equipped to do this even now? Next, what about, here's another one, and I'm chuckling because I know that for so many people, this is not a thing. Self-compassion. Were you equipped with the willingness and ability to have self-compassion? Or, and again, I'm going to chuckle because I know the answer to this. Do most of you beat yourself up with negative self-talk, negative self-thoughts, condescending speak about yourself in front of your friends? And I know that for the majority of us, I'm including myself, that is our norm, the negative self-talk. I have been in the process of recovering from my addictions for over 35 years. And this is one of the things that I had to become equipped with. And I'll tell you what, I made a decision, and this has been many, many years ago, and I've stuck to it for the most part. And the decision was, I'm not doing that to myself. I am not going to do that to myself. Berate myself, pound on myself emotionally, call myself terrible names. And I really rarely do that, because it is only going to lead to that negative cycle, that depressive cycle, that self-pity cycle, that angry cycle. And what am I going to do if I don't have a lot of these other skills, if I wasn't prepared for what I was going to need after in the journey, or I was not equipped with this? Then I'm going to turn to one of the things I turned to find comfort, to have a sense of control. Do you practice self-compassion? Are you equipped in that arena? What about this one? Are you skilled in creating healthy habits and stopping unhealthy habits? Well, people tell me that, it takes me 21 days to start a new habit. That's a bunch of hogwash, by the way. That is not the truth. It does not take 21 days to establish a habit. It takes however long it takes to establish the habit. So if it's, a less difficult thing, it may take 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. If it's a very difficult thing, it may take 2, 3, 7, 8 months. So that is a fallacy, and research has proven that. So don't go around telling people it takes 21 days to start a habit, because it's a bunch of hooey. But do you have the skills? Are you equipped to know what are the steps to break a habit? What are the steps to implement a new habit? Well, fortunately, there are some really great books on that topic, but have you read them? Have you taken the time and effort to equip yourself with this skill. So as I go through these things, chances are you were not equipped to deal with some of these, again, critical issues and common issues that interfere with our ability to maintain the habits we need to maintain. The drinking of the water, the eating of the protein first, the not skipping the meals, the making sure that we avoid a lot of the excess sugar, or making sure we're not engaging in those highly processed junk foods. That is a requirement for sustained weight loss. If you come off of a GLP-1, there's statistics that 40% or more people gain some, most, or all of that weight back. There are statistics that will tell us how many people regain weight after the sleeve, after the bypass, after the SATI, after the DS. We have information on that. And some of it can be attributed to the confounding factors of the disease of obesity, and some of it can be attributed to our unhealthy eating habits. And if you weren't prepared to deal with all those things we talked about, if you weren't equipped with some of these skills necessary for living a healthy lifestyle, then chances are you're going to go to what you know. All right, so why do we really reach for these things? The food, the alcohol, the shopping. All right, we've established in a lot of ways we were not prepared. Maybe we were somewhat prepared for the surgery, but not the long-term lifestyle. Maybe you were somewhat prepared to understand what will happen to your body with the GLP-1, but maybe not informed about the ways you got to live your life and how you need to eat and exercise, because with GLP-1s and surgical procedures, you lose a lot of muscle in addition to a lot of fat. So you might have been told those things, but what about the skills to deal with life on life's terms? A lot of us were not prepared and we were not equipped. So that takes care of two reasons why we actually return to those things that give us comfort and take us away from the emotional or physical pain that we're in, or distract us from other issues we don't want to deal with. Now let's look at this third one, because we can learn these other skills. We can learn the skills to be prepared. We can learn skills for dealing with boundary setting and self-care and stress and coping. We can learn those things if we choose to. What about number 3 here as to why we really reach for these things? Maybe we don't want to change. So my question to you is, you're going to say, of course I want to get prepared. Of course I want to be more equipped to deal with these day-to-day issues that really can interfere with my ability to follow through with these healthy lifestyle skills, and then I slip back into those old unhealthy habits. But my question is, not just with your words do you wanna, with your actions. Do you really want to learn these skills? So this is where the games stop, right? We played these fun games, equipped or ill-equipped, prepared or not prepared. There's nothing funny here to do this, because this is serious. The real question is, are you willing to do what it takes to avoid reaching for the food or the alcohol or the shopping or those other things that give you instant temporary comfort? Are you really willing to do the work it takes? So let's go over some of these things. Now, as I told you, on the agenda is we're going to explore this, these urges and this reward-seeking pattern and why habits don't just disappear. So let's address that just for a minute, because I want to make sure I address all the things you were promised in the description for today's talk. All right, so when we find ourselves in situations we're not prepared or equipped to handle, let's say, you've had your surgery, you're 5 months out, and all of a sudden there's a really, you get laid off from your job, a big deal. That is stressful. That affects you and your livelihood and your family and all the people. Big deal. Do you know how to deal with the stress without returning to the habitual coping skill that has comforted you for a lot of years? A lot of people tell me, well, I was doing really good and then my mom got sick, or I was doing really good and then I got laid off, or I was really doing great and then, my marriage fell apart and I regained all the weight, which tells me I'm not prepared or equipped to deal with these difficult situations. And it's not always the catastrophic ones. Sometimes it's like, well, I was busy with work and the kids are in all the activities and I just don't have time. You have to be equipped with how to prioritize what you need for your health, because health really is wealth. I know it's a cliche, but it is true. So when life gets stressful and you're not prepared or equipped to deal with the stress, what are you going to do? You're going to go to what you know: food, alcohol, shopping, gambling. So let's understand a little bit about these reward-seeking patterns, because this stuff goes on in our brain. So when we think about the food or the shopping or the gambling or the things that bring us this instant pleasure, this instant dopamine, there's motivation and anticipation, right? I'm thinking about the food and I know that ice cream soothes me and I know that chips help me with my anger and blah, 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 blah. So we seek patterns that motivate us and fill us with anticipation of something we want. The brain releases this dopamine when you anticipate a reward. So you can think about your favorite food. You can think about what you want to buy, and you get this dopamine hit. And it creates a motivational state in your brain. So I'm thinking about this. I'm looking forward to the dopamine. I'm starting to have some now, and then I'm going to go out and I'm going to seek the reward in that thing. Now, if you're not prepared or equipped to handle, oh my gosh, I'm having a craving for whatever it is, or I want to go out and I want to spend some money, or I just want to feel better right now. If you're not prepared or equipped with some of those necessary healthy lifestyle coping skills, what you're going to do is you're going to return to the unhealthy pattern. So we feel stress maybe, or we feel fear, we feel anger, loneliness, boredom, whatever it is, and I want relief right now. I want to feel better now. That's when, without the skills, without being equipped or prepared, we turn back to this reward-seeking substance or behavior that gives us that instant gratification. Now, if you are prepared, if you are working in therapy, you're learning, okay, I have to take a pause. There's power in that pause. So let's say I am prepared. I am in therapy. I had good role models in these things, and I have some pretty good life coping skills now. I'm still seeking that dopamine. I recognize that my brain automatically goes to wanting this food, but now instead, I use what's referred to as goal-directed behavior. Meaning, my goal is to keep this weight off. So instead of just having the stimulus, I feel bad, and the response, which could be the reward, the food, the shopping, the whatever, now I think about my outcome in between there. This is the pause. I feel the heavy emotion. I'm dealing with the big stress, but I pause and I go, you know what? If I eat this food, is it going to lead me to where I want to be or further from where I want to be? My goal, the outcome I am seeking, is healthy living. So I'm going to use a healthier skill as my response. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to deal with this by journaling. I'm going to do something besides turn to food. And that's where we have number 3 in this reward-seeking pattern. Now you see this habit cycle. This is, we have a cue like stress, or we see a commercial. We have one of these triggers, or something just triggered me and I'm feeling frightened like I did when I was a child, and I would turn and get my hidden stash of food. That's my habitual action. But I want to have a long-term goal. So the reinforcement is once the reward is obtained. So without the healthy skills, the reward is going to be that food or that alcohol or that shopping. Now that creates a memory. I feel a certain way, I eat the food, and I feel calmer. So that's the reward. So it strengthens the bond between what we're thinking about and how we feel when we get it. But let's say I'm changing my habits, which we'll talk about in just a minute, and I'm learning, I want to do what I said up here. My outcome, the goal I am seeking, is a healthy lifestyle. So now, as I implement new habits, the cue is I'm feeling stressed, I want some relief, but my action is not going to be to turn to the food. My action is going to be to call my friend and talk about it. My action is going to be to pull up my journal and write about it. My action is going to be to draw something that represents how I'm feeling. Now, the reward is I'm comforted, I'm calmed, I'm relaxed, I'm over this intensity, and yet I have been successful in following through with what I want. So now I'm changing the conditioning, the strengthening of the connection between what I did and the feeling good about myself. Do you think that happens just because you have surgery? No, it does not. That is why we have to become prepared and equipped to deal with those things so we can break this pattern and start a new one, which leads us to, why don't habits just disappear? Why can't I say, you know what, I don't want my habit to be reaching for food when I'm angry, upset, or worried. I want my habit to be calling a friend, journaling, taking some time for myself to think. But they don't just disappear because they are deeply ingrained in our brain circuitry. It's in there, it's automatic. I've done it so often, I don't even have to think about it. It is a habit. It's what I do. Now, we can develop some new neural pathways, which means we can develop new connections that provide that relief from following through with what we want toward our goals, but that takes time. And let me tell you something else that people don't hear very often. Those old neural circuits are still there. They don't go away. We can overlay healthier ones on top of them. But if we don't have them, or if we're just starting to work on that, that return to the old way of doing things happens like that because it's there. It's what we've known for a long time. Do you think we need to prepare a little bit more or equip ourselves a little bit more to deal with life? Because these old habits don't go away. And that's why people return to them so easily, and we have so much struggle with maintaining weight loss. They don't disappear. They meaning bad habits. Bad habits will not just disappear because you've had some sort of surgical procedure on your stomach. Bad habits will not just disappear because you started taking a GLP-1. Now, having that medication or the surgery is going to help you have a reprieve mentally from craving the food or from being able to eat too much, so you have time to do what? Become prepared and equip yourself to know how to deal with those things in a healthier way and to build those neural connections in your head as you form these new habits, so that if you go off the GLP-1 or as time goes on in your life as a post-op and those cravings come back a little bit, you're better equipped to deal with them in healthier ways. All right. Let's now talk a little bit about healthy habit formation. So how are habits formed? I don't have time to go into this in detail here, but I'm going to tell you very briefly that it's a lot of repetition involved. But the first, and this I think comes from that book, the Atomic Habits book. And the author says, make it obvious. Make it obvious that I'm trying to change a habit. How do I make it obvious? Let's say I want to incorporate taking my vitamins, my bariatric vitamins. So I make it obvious. So I might have sticky notes on my, my bedside table, my mirror in the bathroom. I might have them sitting in my sink, the bottle of vitamins, so I don't forget. And I know there are certain timing with some of these vitamins, so I use the calculator, the computer in my hand called my phone, and I set the timers. Make it obvious. Oh, time to take my vitamins. Make it attractive. Link it to something you enjoy. So what's enjoyable about, taking your vitamins? I don't know. Maybe you say, I'm going to take my vitamins with my favorite water packet flavoring. Maybe that makes it more enjoyable for you. Or maybe it's attractive to you because when you take your vitamins, it's a way to give yourself a positive check mark. Check, did this. It's an important thing for my health. But make it attractive. Link it to something that is somewhat enjoyable for you. And if it's checking off on your gotta do them handout sheet that you took your vitamins, that's one kind of win. That makes it attractive. I did something good for myself. Make it satisfying. Give yourself immediate rewards. And that doesn't mean turning to food for a reward. What it means is celebrate yourself. We are so good at hammering on ourselves. Celebrate yourself for doing something really well. Give yourself credit. We don't do this nearly enough. And there's so much science behind the fact that if we celebrate our smallest wins, I always tell people, celebrate as if you're celebrating a toddler taking their first steps. Man, we get excited about that. And that's what we need to be doing for ourselves. We don't need to expect everybody else to give us a standing ovation if we take vitamins, but give yourself one, because that is really important in your long-term health. All right, and then the fourth step is make it easy. And we want to start small for success. So again, make it easy. Put those vitamins right in your sink so you're like, oh yeah, I got to make sure I do this today. And then follow through with doing it and repeat until whatever it is and however long this particular habit takes to create that you're doing it. So the question here, remember we are working now on do you wanna? Are you willing to put forth the effort to create healthy new habits, to maintain weight loss, knowing that it can take from, weeks to months, many months, to establish habits? Are you willing to put forth that effort? And here's where a lot of people are like, oh crap. I just wanted to lose weight. I just wanted to have surgery and lose weight. Oh crap. I just wanted to take a shot and lose weight. I didn't want to have to work on all of this. Well, surprise, surprise, surprise. Anything worth doing is worth working for. Are you worth working for yourself and a lifetime of healthy living? All right, another thing on our agenda was to explore the real needs behind these urges by exploring personal triggers. Do you know what a trigger is? A trigger can come in a lot of ways. Triggers are memories. They're things that trigger a memory or a strong feeling, a reaction that results in you turning to comfort. For a lot of us, for example, triggers can be people. Maybe you run into a person from your high school who severely bullied you, and you're just out walking, doing your life, and bam, face to face with this person in Target. And all of a sudden you have these emotions. You feel your face flushing. You feel yourself shrinking. You're feeling yourself fall into that. Oh my God, I can't stand the way I feel when this person is around because of how I felt when they were around earlier in my life. That can lead to a strong urge for something to give you comfort. And if you haven't been prepared, or if you haven't become equipped with the skills to handle situations like this, when you're feeling intense flood of emotion, big memories that are unpleasant, you're going to go to that thing you always knew. Food. I gotta go get some food. It's going to make me feel better. It's going to bring you back to a calmer place because that's what it's always done for you. We have to break those cycles. You have to learn. You have to become prepared and equipped to deal with triggers because you're going to see them all the time. A person can be a trigger. The sound of a person's voice can be a trigger. So maybe you had a really awful relationship with your grandfather, and maybe your grandfather made fun of your weight or did inappropriate things, and you're out in the world, and maybe again you're still at Target and you hear a voice, and that voice triggers the memory of grandpa's voice, and all of a sudden you feel nauseous, you feel scared, you feel like you're 3 feet tall like you were when he was around, and you're filled with those emotions. This is a trauma response. You want to fight, you want to flight, you want to flee, you want to shrink, you want to disappear, because your trauma response has been enacted. It's like, this person caused trauma in my life and I'm feeling it all over again, and I need something to make me feel better. Again, if you're not equipped or prepared with healthy coping skills, you're going to go to what you know. Maybe you're going to spend $500 more than you would have in Target that day. So a situation can be a smell, it can be a billboard for your favorite comfort food, it can be, holidays are so filled with triggers. Things at the grocery store can be triggers. So we have to be able to learn the skills for dealing with triggers so that we don't return to the unhealthy habits that have soothed us in the past. So what are those things? Those things here's how we deal with triggers. We have to identify it. We have to identify the trigger. Okay, what's going on here? Now, when you're in the moment and you're filled with a lot of emotion because you've just been triggered, sometimes you can't really think of that because your brain is so flooded with this fight or flight kind of response that maybe it's later when you process through this. But learn to identify, know what your triggers are. If you're going to the grocery store and you know that the alcohol aisle is a trigger for you, stay the heck out of it. You've got to do the things, you've got to learn to prepare yourself in case you run into these triggers. If you're going into the holidays and you got all these triggers that you're walking into, it's like walking into a minefield. You better prepare yourself. And I have tools on my website that can help you prepare. It's called a personal protection plan. So you can download that and develop this personal protection plan. But you have to identify it. You have to identify the emotional need. Okay, I'm scared because I heard that voice that sounds like Grandpa. I need comfort. I need reassurance that he's not going to hurt me. I need validation that I am capable. I need all of these things. How do I get those met? Well, I don't know. So what am I going to do? I'm going to find the thing that has always soothed me. But if I have my healthy options, again, listed on my phone, I'm going to step out of Target. I'm going to call my friend and I'm going to say, my God, the worst thing just happened. I saw this guy and he used to bully me and I feel just like I felt when I was 7 years old and I need to talk to somebody. That's a healthy option. So know the options, choose the healthy option, and then celebrate your success of following through with something that you did for yourself that was very healthy. So again, do you wanna? Do you wanna? Are you willing to learn about these triggers? Learn what they are, because they are sending you back to food. They are sending you to alcohol. They are sending you to the bankruptcy court. If we don't know how to deal with these personal triggers in healthy ways, are you willing to put forth the effort? It's a lot of effort. All right, next on our agenda is knowing the difference between cravings and true needs, emotional eating and addiction. So let's talk about this for just a minute. So a craving, you've had cravings. And when we experience craving, it's usually very specific. Like, I want a salty snack, or right now I have to have ice cream, or I have to have chocolate, or I have to have a donut. Do you know where this craving is? Is there an origin story to this? And again, it's oftentimes a trigger. It's that sudden emotional burst or emotional memory brought on by a trigger. Or it could be related to having a bad interaction with your boss, or it could come from having an argument with a spouse or a kid or your mother. So this big feeling, where did it come from? The behavior, this craving, it's like, remember we talked about that motivational system? I want what I want when I want it. I'm going to go get that. I'm going to get what I need. I'm going to feel better. And then I'm going to experience the satisfaction that I got from the food or the alcohol. Or if you're equipped, you're going to turn to one of the healthier options and you're going to get the comfort you need from engaging in a healthy behavior. But if you don't know those things, you don't know those things. And so you're going back to those unhealthy habits. All right, what are true needs? True needs is, when we're talking about hunger, it's I need to eat, Or I need something to drink. I'm thirsty. That's a need. I need fuel for my body. I'm feeling weak. I need some energy. What's the origin of that need? Well, it's a biological thing. We need fuel to keep our systems going. What's the behavior? Well, a true need usually comes on gradually. Our stomach is emptying. We're actually hungry. It's time to eat. And if you're on a GLP-1, sometimes you're not hungry at all. You still need to eat because food is a true need for your body to get through the day. Or if you don't have a lot of hunger after a bariatric or surgical procedure, then you still need to eat. And then you have the satisfaction that comes from having energy in your body. Your blood sugar levels are more stable. You've got the energy to do what you need. So we're really talking about how do I know if it's a craving or an emotional desire, if it's true hunger? And basically what we're talking about here is emotional hunger versus physical hunger. So you've got to know the difference, and you have to set your timer. It's time to eat. I need to eat every 3 or 4 hours. Whatever you were prepared for at your bariatric center or your medical weight loss center where you're getting your GLPs. Well, guess what? A surgical procedure or a GLP-1 is not going to fix or treat emotional hunger or these cravings. And so we can't expect, if we don't learn, if we aren't equipped with the skills to deal with stress, life on life's terms, things that come up in our everyday life, we're going to default to those neural pathways in our brain, which are the negative habits. Okay, why? Because emotions are about cravings. Emotional eating has nothing to do with our true needs, which is hunger, satiation, or the sense of satisfaction or fullness that we get from a true need of biological hunger. All right. So here's how we can stop emotional eating. This is one tool. There are many tools out there, and I encourage you to seek out many of them. But one of the tools that you can take home with you is this formula for stopping emotional eating, meaning you literally, I use the acronym STOP. The S stands for stand still, stop, sit down, process, just stop before you automatically turn to something unhealthy. And then think, what was the activating event? Well, I saw that guy in the store, it triggered me. Or, I walked into grandma's house and I was, bowled over by this emotional sense of missing my grandma, and we used to cook together and I just wanted to cry, and food always soothed me, and that's what grandma gave me. So how am I feeling? I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling frightened, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. The question, what do I need emotionally? It's not food. I need comfort. I need soothing. I need affirmation. How can I get that emotional need met in a healthy way? And then praise yourself. Again, this isn't just going to come naturally to you. If you're not prepared or have learned the skill for this and become equipped in this processing, it's not going to happen. So it's so easy to see why we go back to those old habits. There's a lot to learn. And does this not speak to the fact that you have to be willing? Do you really want to? Do you want to learn these skills? Because as you've been listening to me, you're probably thinking, this is a whole lot of dang work. It is a whole lot of dang work. And if you don't learn the work, if you don't learn the skills, if you don't learn the tools, you're pretty much going to be more likely to turn back to emotional eating or turning to the thing you get immediate gratification from. And that's not going to lead you where you want to be if your goal is sustained weight loss and a healthy lifestyle overall. An RD that I found this quote from says, when you're dealing with emotional eating, you need awareness and self-compassion. And most of us are not very adept at the self-compassion. So we really need to practice that as a skill. So how do we know if we're engaging in emotional eating? That quick, I want it now, that intensity, the craving versus an addiction. And the simplest answer to that is addiction is present. You're dealing with an addiction when you have a behavior that you want to stop. You've wanted to stop going to the carbs. You've wanted to stop turning to food for comfort, but you continue to do it. Even though you've experienced some major negative consequences, maybe it's your blood pressure, your heart, your fatty liver, your diabetes, your whatever it is, you've had consequences. They can be physical or they can be psychological. And we know there are psychological consequences when we're dealing with the disease of obesity. We're frustrated, we're scared about our health. There's all of those things that are going on. So how do we know? Is this emotional eating or if it's addiction? Well, it's addiction if you really, really, really want to stop and you say you're going to stop, and maybe you do for a short term, but you come back. You're doing something you don't want to do anymore. And you continue to do it even though there have been problems. That means I'm not able to stop. There's probably an addiction going on here. And it's really important to remember that obesity is a disease, addiction is a disease. They are separate diseases. You can't treat addiction with weight loss surgery. You can't treat addiction with the GLP-1. You have to treat the disease of obesity independently and concurrently with the disease of obesity. So to treat addiction, there's probably going to be some abstinence. Obviously, you can't abstain from food, but you can abstain from, if it's potato chips that you turn to repeatedly, you can abstain from potato chips. You can learn to do that. There's plenty of real food on the table that you can turn to. You use support groups. You develop these skills and tools that I'm talking about. Maybe you go to therapy. You address unresolved emotional issues that may be involved. So again, the question boils down to, are you willing to learn the skills, put forth the time, put forth the effort to change the emotional eating or get help for the addiction? If that's what you're dealing with, it's not just going to happen. Again, I reinforce the idea that this all requires a tremendous amount of effort. My question to you is, are you willing? Do you wanna? Do you wanna do this? I can't answer that for you, but I sure as heck hope that you can. So now we're going to go over some tools and to help you learn these skills, to equip yourself. And one of them is podcasts. And lo and behold, I have a podcast and you happen to be listening to it right now, Weight Loss Winformation. And as you are probably aware, a majority of the episodes with my podcast can relate to anything. It doesn't just have to be food. So I highly encourage and very much appreciate you sharing these episodes with people, even if their issue is not food that they're dealing with. Everybody's dealing with some kind of issue that they can likely benefit from by listening to this podcast and many others. So you want to get help and get happier. Maybe you don't like listening to podcasts, but you like reading books. Well, look at that. I have several books I've written, and there are many, 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 many more. I have a great book list on my website that you can get great recommendations for books. And take online courses. You know what? I have one of those too. It's called Gain While You Lose. And in the next year, I'm adding very, very many more to do exactly what I'm encouraging you to do today, to learn the skills for setting boundaries, to learn how to use assertive communication, to learn to improve your self-worth and your self-esteem. So take some of those classes online for myself and others, and go to therapy. All the cool kids are doing it. I hear everybody in California goes to therapy. What about other states? Are you going to therapy? Have a therapist, get a coach, get a mentor, get a guide, get some help to learn these skills and equip yourself. And you are the only one that can do this for you. You are the only one. This is all about you and your health. So a lot of people tell me it's my year, it's my turn, it's my time. Well, good, I'm glad. So take the time and do what you need to do to equip yourself, to prepare yourself, and to follow through what's needed to live a healthier lifestyle. It's your health. It's also your responsibility. You're not responsible for having the disease of obesity or the disease of addiction, but you're sure as heck responsible for how you treat that today and every day. Thank you for spending this time for me. I know we went from lighthearted to serious in Nothing Flat, but this is serious business. We're talking about your health. And the reality is you can improve your health and live the highest quality life if you're willing to put forth the effort. All right, my friends, that's what I have for today. Next week, I think I'm going to be talking about, I did a talk for a women's retreat, and we had a bad connection. So I'm going to go over that information, and it is on how we deal with stress, the responses, the fight, the flight, the freeze, the trauma responses, and talk about some of that to give you some additional healthy coping skills for when you are faced with triggers that kind of throw you off your best game, so that you can stay present and deal with whatever situation you got going on in the healthiest way possible. All right, that's what we got for today. Have an amazing day. Thank you for listening and spending your time with me. Please share this with other people. Remember, you are a winner because you are seeking skills to make your life better. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.